Hello and welcome guys to this new video of mine. So it's been a while since I've done some educational content, quote unquote, on this channel. The channel generally has been a bit dry from content, I would say. I've just released some montages, some plays from my ADC days. But now I've decided to actually start putting out more content again. Just for the sake of it, just because I feel like it. And I thought it would be a great opportunity to continue the thought of one of my older videos where I talked about drafting philosophy of LS, my own drafting philosophy, and of course these things are subject to change. Again, one's view on the game, one's view on what is important, what is not important changes constantly while you play the game for years. Well, like champion strength shifts and stuff. But I've done this list here in this Google Doc for quite some time. I've kept updating it and I thought, why not just make some videos about it? Maybe some people like to know more about when champion is good to pick. As a disclaimer, this video is going to focus less on pure mechanics of a champion. Of course, mechanical prowess and champion knowledge is crucial for succeeding in this game. It is crucial for climbing in the solo queue ladder, and it is crucial if you are planning to whip out a champion on the competitive stage as a pro player or as an amateur player. That being said, I still think that drafting is a huge part of success, or can be a huge part of success, and people are not utilizing it and not utilizing proper champion answers and draft spots properly still in the year 2023. We are at 14th of November 2023. Next weekend is going to be a world final between T1 and Weibo Gaming. And this year's World Championship, we've still not seen like a huge shift, despite like some people like Carrier whipping out the Bard, whipping out like range supports, but that's like a really slim margin of players, of Eastern players. And to be fair, from my point of view, the European stance on creativity, on flexibility in draft, on flex picks in general, despite teams like G2 trying it still, has been declining, or has been on a constant decline. People are picking the same monotone champions over and over again, even though they might have answers. So I've decided to just talk a bit about my list, starting A to Z with all the champions that are in the game currently. If new champions are added into the game, I will try to keep it updated. I will try to keep making videos about it. So I think we can get right into it. So this video is gonna start with Aatrox. Aatrox is a top laner. He can also be played as a mid laner, but this champion is mainly played on solo lanes. I thought about how I was gonna do this. First I'm gonna like go through these columns. I'm gonna talk a bit about his strengths and weaknesses that I perceive. Of course, if there's like an Aatrox one trick watching this, who knows like special mechanics, because I can't play all of those champions regularly, obviously, and I don't know everything about these champions. I just have a general grasp from over 10 years of playing this game in like high diamond and master MMR and like watching pro play streams to give my opinion on it. So this is really subjective in some sort of way. But I still think it can be helpful. You can watch these videos as a sort of podcast. You can watch them when you go to sleep. You can watch them like during the day. I don't care. I just try to make like semi-educational content, maybe also entertainment content with this. And people that are interested are gonna have a field day with this, I think. So in my drafting philosophy video, I've also talked about these color schemes that LS introduced from Magic the Gathering, even though I am not huge card game player, or like I used to play Hearthstone, but this is still a good scheme though. Like I think this is perfect to describe not only champs' strengths and weaknesses and bring them onto color scheme. It's also just good to see how champions can be picked and when they can be picked. rather than just defining a meta, quote unquote, and picking champions that circle, that you perceive that counter each other, but they are moving in a circle. Because in reality, you can circle not only between like these things, these 3 or 4 things, you can circle through all the champion classes that are inside of the game. And therefore I have also tried to list all of the champions in the game in here, even though Briar is missing, I think, still, or maybe some new champs are missing, but I think it's quite complete. But yeah, the guide is gonna also focus around this. So these are basically 3 parts: strengths and weaknesses, color schemes. For all the other champions, I will not be repeating all of this beforehand, obviously. I will just jump right into it with the other champions, but I think for a start, for like my first video on champion, this is like a good start. So yeah, let's just go ahead with Aatrox. In case you have any questions, just drop them in the comments. Feel free to leave a like, feel free to subscribe if you enjoy this type of content, and like don't hesitate to give me feedback. I'm always open to feedback, and if I can make things more interesting, more graspable, more comprehensible, just write it in the comments. So with Aatrox, the thing is, I've already talked about that he's been played as a top and a mid laner. He could also, in theory, be flexed between these roles, could still be flexed in certain matchups. Depends on the type of champions that are played in mid and top lane, obviously. I would not necessarily blind him, in case you're like obviously one trick on him or something. His strength lies in his sustain, in his laning oppressiveness, and his early mid-game oppressiveness. But since some changes, he's also been scaling not badly, I would say. I mean, I've had scaling as a weakness here, but it really depends on the type of team composition, I think. He's prone to reduction of healing, even though anti-heal is not really good in his current iteration inside of the game, as we all know. Or as not all know, but I believe so. Obviously, he's a Juggernaut and Bruiser. So he generally struggles early against, or like struggles to make progress into tanks early. But he will outscale them on side with his max health damage from passive. And I still would describe him as like 60% red and 20% green. And then there's like his mechanical skill where I say like this is like a black part of him, where it's like 20% for the combos for like the E auto reset and stuff. Again, these type of videos are not gonna focus too much on the mechanical part of the champion, even though it's obviously a huge part of how you value them inside of like the whole game as a whole. So I'm gonna talk about it here and there, I guess. To talk about the colors again, now I said he's red and green. So red is like snowball heavy early aggro type of champion, and green is like he can heal himself up with his passive. He can like sustain a lot. And yeah, I mean black is like special. I don't know, I wasn't sure whether I should like include this as like a black trait, his combos, but I still think he's a champion with a high mechanical ceiling, so just to include that inside of the video. And where would I rate him? Like in which of these columns, in which of these parts of the graphic would I rate him? I think he's a sort of mid-rangey champion. So he's like of shorter range, but he has like gap close with his E. Obviously, he can find good flanks on squishy targets, so I would say he's like quite good at picking off maybe enchanters, and he will outscale tanks on sidelines later on. But he is prone to terrain control, and he is prone to control, so if you want to counter him, it's really good to have things that prevent his dashes. It's really good to have things that can CC him, that can lock him down, and that can reduce his healing, obviously. So if you have like an enchanter in your team comp that like is scared of getting like one shot by him, or like scared of him getting reset because he requires resets on his ultimate, it's like important that you buy the purifier, I'm not sure right now, but it's really important to keep that in mind. But he's generally just good against like things that he can one-shot in backline. He's good at flanking, he's good at side laning, as like bruisers are good at side laning and flanking and picking off people in smaller skirmishes and like turning smaller skirmishes, I would say. And what else is there? I can go like, I said he's like weak against control, so it's like, I mean, Anivia has a really good answer probably into him. Like, I'm talking about isolation. This is not like, this like does not mean that that you should always pick these champions, right? It's like depending on the other champions inside of the game as well. But just to name some examples, like these champions are quite good because he's like a dive heavy champion. He's like shorter range. So champions with control are really, really strong against him, I would say. Like, just to name some examples of some champions are strong into him. Yeah, and I think that's already everything about Aatrox. I mean, the runes you can look up from like the one tricks and the high elo players that play him. Many played with Conqueror, I believe. And the builds you can also look up on like pro builds and stuff. You can just type into Google Aatrox pro builds, and then it will turn up. You can go on this side, for example, and you will see his runes and his you can see his runes and his items. Obviously the items depend on game. Some like to go Gore Drinker, some like to go Dustblade. It really, really depends on the game and how you want to play him. And yeah, that's pretty much everything I would get from this list from Aatrox. And I'll see you guys in the next video with Ari. See you then, guys. I hope you enjoyed watching. Leave a like and maybe subscribe if you like this type of content. Bye bye.